sugar, spice, and everything nice. These were the ingredients chosen to create the perfect little girl. But Professor Utonium accidentally added an extra ingredient to the concoction, Chemical X.
Welcome, Victorian alchemists. A whole bunch of nameless assistants and racist depictions of servants. To episode 453 of an Unearthly Podcast, streaming live on the 14th of June, 2022, and featuring the evil of the Daleks, animated reconstruction written by David Whitaker and starring Patrick Troutman as the Doctor, Fraser Hines as Jamie McCrimmon, and introducing Deborah Watling as Victoria Waterfield. I am Bill Sylvia, the one in black, and I think somebody isolated the cold factor in order to introduce the heat factor to the weather. With me are Randy Ronson McCulloch, our co-host.
Too damn hot.
Alex Fireheart, our color commentator.
Clearly it switched over to here, given how cold it is.
And Mad Matt Winchell, our technical director.
My arms are sunburnt. Not
All
a
right,
joke, that's the truth.
How's the last week been for everybody?
Tornadoes and thunderstorms and heat waves, oh my.
That and I
Welcome to the Midwest, Bill. Here's our weather.
That and I went to a cousin's wife's funeral and got sunburnt outside. It's mostly an outdoor thing and it lasted almost 4 hours.
They did an outdoor thing for 4 hours in this weather?
Sunday.
Oh, Sunday. Sunday wasn't that bad.
Mm-hmm.
Then Monday brought the storms.
But it was bad for Midwesterners out for 4 hours without sunblock.
It was, but I mean, it wasn't like, oh my God, the heat.
Right.
No, that was today.
Right. It's like, what month is this? June? Isn't this supposed to be August weather?
It was July weather in my experience, but yeah.
July, August, yeah.
I'm just glad we have the AC on here. The thunderstorms we had yesterday knocked out power in some parts of Madison, and it's still out to this day.
Jeez.
So could you imagine having your power knocked out at about 2, 3 o'clock yesterday, and then have the biggest frickin' heat wave with no power to run the air conditioner, nothing, That's a day you don't stay at home. Other than that, it's been business as usual here. The little shits figured out that the foam covering on my my headset mic was just a covering, and stole it in the last couple of days. I have no idea where it went, but It's now considered a cat toy somewhere. Eventually, I'll find it, half drooled on and destroyed because Moo will bring it to me to play fetch with, and I'm going to glare at him when he does it. Other than that, nothing new has recently happened. I spent a little money getting curry delivered the other day because I had this massive craving for curry. Oh my God, that hit my tongue and I couldn't stop eating it. I was just like, yum.
I need to start like trying out different types of curry because I'm always like, well, what if I spend this money and I don't like it? So I order what I'm used to, which is vindaloo. And then I'm like, maybe I should actually try other things.
I always buy vindaloo, but that's just me. This was lamb vindaloo, cheese naan, and papadums with mango chutney.
Yeah.
I'm just like, oh. And then I regretted it, several hours later.
Yeah, that's another reason
Making
I
a
don't
particular
order
kind
curry
of
a lot.
music in the bathroom, huh?
Oh, no. It wasn't the bathroom that was the problem. I would sit up and, have a little stomach gas that would, burp.
Oh.
And the burp was spicy.
Oh.
Oh.
Yeah.
Just like, I don't remember this being this spicy going down. Oh, but yeah, that was... And you see, the thing is, I love Indian style, the white rice they serve with curry. Because it's not as sticky as the stuff you get from Chinese or Japanese places. Or as sticky as the stuff I make myself. And it has this wonderful taste to it. I think they, add jasmine or something. So I'm sitting here eating that, and I'm just like, oh. And I might have eaten until my stomach's like, okay, that was about 5 bites too much. When it goes from oh to oh. So how have your weeks been?
Well, for me, it was like, oh yeah, taking a week off work, and then the temperature shifted enough that my sinuses went to shit, and it's like, oh well, I've just been sick since. Like, the worst of it was the weekend because I went from vomiting to like just being in that sort of flu-y state. And now I'm at the point enough where like I don't feel either really fucking cold or like unreasonably warm. Though I think it's gotten slightly warmer lately the past day or so anyway. It's like 24 degrees Celsius at the moment, so that's nice. But yeah, like, it was mainly annoying because it's just like, oh great, I take a week off and get sick, that'd be right. Here I was intending to like, I mean, I don't even really know. Well, I guess part of the thing is I was like, oh, I could try to mess around with my sleeping habits to get them back into something decent again. And then, I spend most of Sunday going in and out of sleep. So it's like, oh, well, there goes that idea.
That's Murphy's Law for you. Yeah, that time you were going to have to personalize and recoup? Yeah, have a virus. How about you, Bill? How's your week been?
I don't think anything really special. Let's see. I did finally last night due to combination of it being too hot to do anything meaningful and too hot to sleep. I started playing some video games again a little bit, which I haven't done in a few weeks. Although mainly I've still been procrastinating on that final Legends Arceus boss that is a bit of a challenge. Not the final boss, but it's like the second to last. Um, Otherwise, have I done anything worth mentioning recently? Not really. I have been doing basically daily short tutorials to learn to code R, which, if you're not familiar with it, you may be familiar with something similar, which is Python. But R is mainly used for statistical analyses, but it's a programming language. You can really kind of do anything in it, but it's mainly used for psychological and others, maybe, probably, I'm sure, plenty of other areas of research. But it's also free, unlike a lot of statistical software. So my goal is within the next year to be familiar enough with it that I can do a whole research study analysis in R without needing other software. So I think I'm making progress on that. Slow, but progress. Not making as much progress on physical activity because every time I look at the weather and it says 80 degrees, I cancel my plans. And of course, now we're looking at 96, 97. So I might cancel any plans that involve leaving the living room. Um, so yeah, most of my time has been spent in this living room where I am now.
All right. Matt, how about you?
Mostly work. I did have some time to stream, only to find out that because I skipped ahead in trying to get to the end of Quake, I have to go back and do all the levels I skipped. Because this is what happens when you don't also save your saves, which I thought the cloud was supposed to do on Steam, but apparently not. So
It depends on the game.
So I've been homeworking my way back through it in reverse order now because that's just the way it was, and I'm down to the last chapter and a half or less. Still have to finish that, and like I was saying, I went to a cousin's wife's funeral, got burned, spent a couple hours out there, and eventually came back, and that was my last day off. Didn't realize I was even burnt until about a couple hours before bed, and when I'm suddenly why is my arm kind of aching? Lift up my arm, look at it through the light of my monitor. Oh shit, I'm turning pink.
Well, at least it's
Why not
lobster
Zoidberg?
red. Yeah.
No, it's extreme, but it's enough to be an irritant. And the first night of rest, my entire arm was, my wrist up to my fingers was actually in a cramp. And actually, no, that was the first day off. The second day off was me recovering and everything else.
All right. Well, if nobody has anything else, let's go ahead and start tonight, considering how far behind, how far...
I think we lost your audio, Ran.
I think we might have lost Ran.
It never fails. It never fails.
There we go.
Nope.
You can hear me now?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, never fails. I move one blanket and somehow the headphone cord gets wrapped in it. Okay, so on tonight's show, we've got birthdays. We've got some news. We've got 4 pieces of Geek Talk. I do not have a review of Shame because this was a 7-part episode. And watching that was enough. So then we're right to our episode summary, our review, our final thoughts, and our ratings. So let's get down to it, shall we? First birthday is on June 8th and is the birthday of Colin Baker. who played the Doctor from 1985 to 1986. He turned 79. The next day is the birthday of David Troughton, who played King Peladon in 2 episodes in the 70s. He is also the son of Dr. Patrick Troughton. He turned 72. And then finally, the 11th is the birthday of Kit Pedler, who was a writer in the late 60s, co-creator of the Cybermen. Would have been 95, but he died in 1981 at the age of 53. Moving on to the news, Bad Wolf Studios and the BBC announced this week that they have cast a villain for the 60th anniversary special, and they have chosen him to be portrayed by Neil Patrick Harris. Neil Patrick Harris is best known in the early 90s as Doogie Howser, MD, and in the 2000s as Barney Stimson from the sitcom How I Met Your Mother. Also was very briefly in the web series Dr. Horrible's Sing-Along blog as Dr. Horrible. Let's hope he can take some of that malice and use it in this particular venue. What do you guys think?
Hard to say what to think about that right now, and we'll see what they come up with, I guess.
Yeah, it's definitely at this point I think requires more understanding of what the episode's premise is. Although I think that's the part they're keeping us guessing about. I mainly know him from Dr. Horrible. I'm sure I've seen other things with him, but they were probably before I knew who he was. So yeah, I mean, I think he could definitely be an interesting character, but it all depends on what Russell's doing with him.
He was in Starship Troopers, if you recall. If you've seen that, I guess.
Okay.
He had cameos as himself in the Harold and Kumar films. He's done a lot of voice acting for DC. He also very recently was in the new Matrix movie as basically Neo's analyst. He's done various cameos and single shots in TV series, both animated and not. And often he's playing himself because he's basically gotten this version of himself that I think started on Harold and Kumar that has become a character in its own right. You know, like Will Wheaton has.
Yeah.
But it's going to be interesting to see how he's portraying this, because he's, you know, done campy and he's done non-campy. So one thing
he'll portray the actual Dr. Horrible, and the Doctor must.
Well, yeah, I mean, you know, what better thing for the 60th anniversary to have Doctor Who versus Dr. Horrible? And it sounds like it based on his own Instagram, where Neil Patrick Harris said, "I'll try my hardest to do my worst. This doctor has no idea what's in store, and even if he does, who cares?" Ha 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 ha. I mean, that sounds like Neil Patrick Harris at his campiest.
Yeah, that sounds like him being a more Competent Dr. Horrible.
Well, yeah, there's no Captain Hammer to beat the shit out of him.
Mm-hmm.
True.
All right. So we've got some photos.
Yep. A lot of photos, but only a few of them show anything I think that are new to us.
Yeah, mostly it looks like the starting ones are just vehicles with logos, troop transports.
Mm-hmm.
Looks like there was a firefight.
And I don't know enough about Cardiff to know if those buildings are landmarks or just random buildings.
I think they're just. It looks like it's just housing.
Mm-hmm.
That looks like standard British housing where the houses are all right next to each other. Technically, that's what number 4 Privilege Drive should have looked like
Yeah.
if Hollywood hadn't gotten to it. Also, what number 12 Grimald Place should have looked like, only more run down. But Hollywood. Yeah, I'm really having trouble finding any.
There we go. So about 2/3 of the way down, there's the caption, "One was tall and insectoid with red glowing eyes." I think that's the first thing that's actually new to us. Is a series of shots, mostly from behind, of what seems to be the new monster for. It would seem the anniversary special, since this is with David Tennant, but we don't really know details.
And all I can think of is, hey, Bugman.
Right,
You
pretty
bug me?
much.
Or
Oh yeah,
man
that's antenna too. So
Yes.
guess they need Will Smith.
And it looks like they were doing these prepping for overnight shoots on Axminster Road in Cardiff. So they just chose a random road in Cardiff. I'm pretty sure. I don't think Axminster Road is known for anything.
I'm trying to see if any of these things that mention a white furry alien have enough detail. Okay, actually, this looks like it's got some detail. I'm gonna post it in the chat in case it's hard to find. There's the chat. In the Discord chat, I mean. So there's this that kind of looks like a giant mouse's head from this angle. At least that's my interpretation. But and I think that's the only shot we've gotten of whatever that is.
Which shot?
The I just posted in the Discord chat, but there's various some of the videos seem to have gotten of the same creature, but oh wait, is this? Oh, never mind. There is another shot. It's okay, there is. I didn't realize it in the still, but if you look in the GIF, it's more clear. Um, the one with the caption, the one by Ryan labeled "What the hell," seems to show what might be a full body shot of that same creature.
The heck?
Full body shot looks almost like an Easter bunny type creature.
Or a cat? I don't know what's up with that.
So it seems like there's at least 2 alien species in this movie, even though it seems to be set. I mean, special, um, while being in Cardiff
Yep.
or whatever Cardiff is pretending to be.
Mm-hmm. Huh. Somebody speculates that this creature could be Beep the Meep. That would be interesting. Talk about digging deep into Doctor Who extended lore. Jesus. Yeah, in fact, the Daily Mail and the Mirror are all over that.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, that's an old villain from the Fourth Doctor comics,
Ah,
Oh,
and has
okay.
made some regular
Mm-hmm.
appearances in Doctor Who audios.
but that's all that we have of those at the moment.
Yep. And that's all the news we have outside of Big Finish, which has one new release this week. And that is Out of Time 3 Wink by Lisa McMullen, with starring Colin Baker and David Tennant. Kind of one of these weird mashup things they've been doing.
Hmm.
And
Oh yeah,
that
out
is
of
all.
time, so that would be out of their own time stream.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
And that is literally all the news we've got.
Okay, so I guess
Mo-
that starts us off with Geek Talk, starting with television and streaming.
okay.
So the first episode of Ms. Marvel aired this past week. And for those who haven't been in the loop, Ms. Marvel has gotten some uh, trepidation because due to the differences between the state of the MCU and the state of the Marvel comics, they said she would not have the origin of an Inhuman. Her costume could not be the same because it was basically uh, Kamala cosplaying a version of Captain Marvel, that a costume that doesn't exist in the MCU, so
Mm-hmm.
it wouldn't make sense for her to have the same costume. Um, and so people wondered, are how similar are the powers going to be? Is this still going to be the same character? And from one episode, I have to say, this seems to be the exact character out of the comics perfectly. The powers are a bit different, but you only see them in the last 5 to 10 minutes of the episode. And what I would say at this point is it kind of seems like they and like it's very brief, so this might not be how it actually is, but it kind of seems like almost a mixture of Captain Marvel and Ms. Marvel's powers. So it's kind of like they're basically instead of doing like a Mr. Fantastic looking appearance, they're using basically another means to give her similar uh, stretchiness related powers that doesn't look quite as Uncanny Valley. But I don't know what they're going to do with it in the long term. Ms. Marvel as a comic is mostly known for sort of being a 21st century version of what Spider-Man originally was. So she's, the teenager who's trying to juggle her teen drama with being a superhero and everything, and being incredibly clumsy and socially awkward. With the added ruffle of being, a second-generation Pakistani immigrant. And all of that comes into play in this episode. Like I said, the character personality and all of the other characters at this point seem like they're pulled completely from the comics. So I would say if you're a fan of the Ms. Marvel comics, as of episode 1, it looks like you're going to enjoy this show. I'm definitely hooked to see how far to see how the show goes. But I would say it looks like it's very faithful in a good way.
All right. Anything else to say?
I think that's about it.
All right. Moving on. We've got Alex talking about a BBC television show from the 1980s.
Yeah, like both while I was sick and just also because my parents were away, I was trying to keep the family dog company. I decided after taking forever to figure out what to watch, I just went fuck it and sat down and watched the British political satire, Yes Minister, all 3 series and the sort of special that happens after. Now, to be fair, British show on the BBC that isn't Doctor Who or stuff like that. So it was only like 7 episodes, and then like 7 episodes per series, and then like a tacked on sort of 8th. That's an hour-long special. I'd held off watching this for so long, even though I'd heard good things. And I think it's just because I wasn't like as interested in politics at all, so like the political humor wouldn't have done anything for me.
Especially being 1980s British political humor and not connected to the present day.
I mean, to be honest, some stuff actually feels pretty relevant. I feel. But I mean, it is weird because like they go out of their way to make the main character, Jim Hacker, is not a member of either major party. They just make him part of some amorphous, unnamed centrist party, essentially. And basically the whole gag is that he actually wants to do things, and the civil servants don't want him to do anything because they want to run everything, and they find politicians to be a nuisance. And it's basically about the clashing between what the politicians want and to like them being motivated by votes and such. Whereas the civil servants want everything to go their way, essentially. And it is quite hilarious. Like I don't know what I would have expected, but yeah, it is very funny. And there's a lot of compromises, and sometimes the politician wins, sometimes the civil servants win. Although the show does end with him becoming prime minister, which leads into the sequel show, Yes, Prime Minister, which happened several years later. Which is funny, and that doesn't even technically happen in the series proper because that happens in the tacked on special at the end. But yeah, honestly, so long as you like British humor and can enjoy how absurd they make the civil service look, because a lot of it is them trying to stay relevant when really it feels like government would probably work a lot better if they didn't exist. Like, if you can get into the thing of that, it's definitely worth checking out, I would say. Despite the fact that this was like still in the throes of the Thatcher era, this is pretty funny. It is weird that they never bring up either party by name. Like, they never bring up Labour by name, they never bring up the Tories by name.
That's not surprising, I think, for BBC.
Well, it's just this particular show didn't. But yeah, I guess it's because they were trying to make fun of, like, how the government's run in general, rather than having to rely on a particular party. Also, they probably just didn't want to bother doing the research of, like, how the parties actually function. But yeah, I just think it's worth checking out. But moving on to the opposite.
Before you move on to the next thing, I'm a little confused as to what the distinction between a politician and a civil servant is in this case.
The politician being the public figure who's actually making all the decisions, technically. Who's, like, you know, in charge of a particular thing, like member of parliament, an MP. And the civil servants are the one that basically do all the busy work.
So, like, all the
Like,
ones that aren't
basically-
elected but are actually hired the normal way?
Yeah, essentially.
Okay.
Like, if you're in the civil service, you're basically set, really. If you get high enough, you're probably going to... Like, the way they pose it is essentially, you know, the main civil servant that he butts heads with is like, you know, oh, I've seen several governments come and go over like 20 years, but we are still there. Like, the civil servants basically govern themselves, and the politicians come and go. Like, they're there regardless of what politicians come in. Sort of a thing.
And then you wonder
So
why
that's
governments
purely
seem
a
corrupt.
UK thing. And that's a purely UK thing, I think. I don't think we have an equivalent in Australia to that specific civil servant type dynamic. Could be wrong. But moving on from that from political satire to political drama. Pretty much yesterday and the day before, I finally tracked down, because I was trying to find this, but ended up not, so I just watched Yes Minister instead. I found the original BBC adaptation of the novel House of Cards, because I didn't even realize that at first, but no, House of Cards, the original UK version, is based on a book, and then there are 2 sequel shows, essentially. And it's basically like 3 mini-series, but I've only watched the first one so far. And not gonna lie, I think it accomplished what it accomplished in 4 hour-ish long episodes. What it took the US version, like 3 seasons. Like, because I don't know how long it takes. I can't remember how long it takes Frank Underwood to actually become president. But good lord, it takes this guy 4 episodes. Now, 4 episodes covering the stretch of, like, a good chunk of the year, I think, or just generally several months. Although the main thing that I find so interesting is that Francis Urquhart, the main character of the UK version, is a Tory, so conservative, right wing. But they made Frank Underwood a Democrat. And the only reason I can think of that they did that is because the UK version was written, the novels were written, or at least the first one was, when Thatcher was still in power. Whereas when the US version was done, Obama was still in power. So I have to believe that's why.
They swapped things. Yeah.
Yeah. Even though it makes no sense, at least to me. Like, I'm not saying that, like, there's probably never been a Democrat that could have been like that. It still feels like it would have fit more with...
If it helps, I think the Democrats are still to the right of the Tories. Because that's just how the U.S. government works.
Well, the funny thing is I saw someone from the UK argue that it's more that the Tories and the Democrats are more equivalent than the Tories and the Republicans. Because the Republicans are way further right than the UK or Australian right-wing parties. Like, as far as the major ones go, like it's
I was
not
gonna
even.
say,
a
depending on who you
contest.
ask, but yeah, some of the major ones, yeah, definitely.
Like, yeah, the Republicans make the Tories look tame, but even then, it's like, it's so interesting to me that, like, I just kind of buy this more because it's like, oh yeah, he's a Tory. Although, to be fair, the reason that he was likely made a Tory is because the person who wrote this was a Tory. So it's like, oh, okay, yeah, that makes sense. I don't know why that didn't occur to me, but yeah, it's like someone who was actually in Thatcher's government is who wrote this. So it's like, oh, okay. So they were an actual politician who had experience that they could draw from, for some of this. And it's actually set after... The funny thing is that it's set after Thatcher steps down. The novel would have been released before she did, and the show aired like weeks before she stood down. So it's like, oh wow, that's interesting timing. But yeah, honestly, it is worth a watch. Like, if you can track it down somewhere, I feel like Netflix used to have it in Australia, but they don't anymore. I had to go to like ABC iView, which is where I get Doctor Who from, modern Doctor Who from anyway, to find it because they got it recently. But in the US, if they have it at all, it might be on Netflix. I'm not sure. But honestly,
BritBox,
yeah.
maybe?
Possibly. Because I've seen it advertised as being on BritBox, but it's not on BritBox in Australia yet. So not really sure what's going on there, but oh well. Rights things. We'll hold it up with the BBC. Which of course,
Yeah.
that's a funny...
This is the House of Cards, 1990. Ian Richardson, Susanna Harker. It's on BritBox.
Ah, there you go. So yeah, so long as you either have BritBox or can scrounge off someone else for it, yeah, I would say that it's definitely worth a watch. Even if you can only watch like an episode a day, given again the episodes are like an hour long. So it's I honestly feel like it's definitely worth looking into. Honestly, I feel like I prefer Francis Urquhart to Frank Underwood anyway, which is like, well, thank God for that, because given what Kevin Spacey's, what's come out about him, I'm like, ooh, don't really want to continue with the US one. So, yeah, having this as an alternative is like, oh, thank God. And it's only 3 miniseries.
I think
So
Spacey
it's
was
probably
just
like-
recently finally charged, now that you mention him.
So yeah, I think it's like only gotta be 12 episodes total. So it's not a huge commitment other than the fact that the episodes are so damn long. But they're all shorter than the Sherlock episodes that Moffat did, so that's nice. But yeah, I would definitely, even if you have like no idea about British politics, so long as political dramas are interesting to you, I'd say check it out.
He's
Yeah, political things can be very dry depending upon what it is, but it seems to be one that keeps coming back, so it might be good.
he will be appearing. He will be appearing in front of the Westminster Magistrates Courts in 2 days.
Ah.
So he hasn't been charged yet, or he hasn't been sentenced yet.
Hmm.
All right.
Anywho.
On to me then.
Oh, yep,
Yep.
one last item, Dragon Ball Super.
All right, yes. So, Dragon Ball Super Superhero, and this so this has been released in Japan, but there is not an English translation yet, or at least not unless maybe if you go onto some of the shadier sides of the internet, there's a fan sub. But
Maybe.
I do not dig that much because I'm on a public network.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so luckily I knew the plot going into it, so the fact that I could only understand 1 out of every 10 words of the dialogue didn't really hinder my watching it. But so Dragon Ball Super, and by the way, the title, apparently Akira Toriyama, who, comes up with the ideas for the movies, forgot that Toei had made the modern version of Dragon Ball called Dragon Ball Super. So the whole there being 2 supers in the title is an accident. But anyway, so this is like, well, I can't really say like all the others because the Dragon Ball Z movies are a very different animal. But the Dragon Ball Superhero basically comes in with the assumption that you probably watched Dragon Ball Z years ago, but might need some reminding of some of the details. It doesn't necessarily care if you've watched Dragon Ball Super or not. Kind of like Dragon Ball Super Broly movie. But this one in particular is basically, it's kind of a question people have asked forever. What happens if, the 2 big stars, Goku and Vegeta, are not around and something happens? So this is mainly a movie focused on Piccolo, of course, with heavy involvement by Gohan as well. Basically dealing with an Earth-based crisis. Without Goku and Vegeta being around.
Finally attempting to pass that torch like he originally planned for Z? No.
Maybe. There's definitely a fair bit of comedy in there. Apparently even some comedy that I did not catch without understanding Japanese. Most of the comedy, like anything Toriyama, is fairly visual, fairly obvious. It's basically kind of I don't know if parody is the right word. But it's a combination of inspired by superhero stuff and also jokes about them. For example, apparently, even in the dialogue, and this is the joke that I mentioned not understanding, but that I found out about afterward. There's a line where somebody asks why there are words saying things like "pow" and "bang" popping up when they fight. So obvious leaning
Batman.
into the comedy.
Yeah.
As well, there's definitely a good bit of action. It's definitely a huge thing for, people who are fans of Gohan and Dragon Ball Z. The kind of action you would expect there. So this, the big or the big at least question mark about this was how it would look because all of the people that would normally animate it are busy on another anime right now. So they basically are doing a sort of, basically a 3D animation style here.
Oh.
And I'll say it looks really good for the fights. The 3D models they use for the fights and the action are pretty good. At their worst, they look like something from Dragon Ball Fighters, the video game. But in general, the fights, I would not complain about the fights at all. The non-combat scenes, they definitely look janky at times. There's definitely moments that look like, would be animated for a PS3 game. But it definitely seems like the majority of the effort for the animation went into the fights, which for a Dragon Ball property, I think that's the right way to go. In terms of whether you would like it or not, it kind of depends. So if you're a stickler for like, is there a logical reason for people to have, new abilities, and is this stand on its own without? Well, I guess it kind of stands on its own without watching the series. You can kind of follow it along, but definitely some of the powers involved. If you're very much a stickler for that sort of stuff, just like anything in Dragon Ball Super, you're going to be disappointed. However, if you can turn that part of your brain off and you can go, wow, that looks really cool. It makes the action more exciting. Even though the explanation doesn't make a lot of sense, it still improves the scenes. If you can go into it with that sort of mindset and you're a Dragon Ball fan, then I think you would enjoy it. Apparently, it sold more opening weekend in Japan than Dragon Ball Broly did, even though that is widely considered one of the best Dragon Ball movies of all time. Probably because this is the movie really for the Gohan fans, which have kind of been waiting for something ever since, the Cell Saga. And yeah, I think that's about it. I'm definitely going to, watch it again when there are subtitle and dub versions instead of just watching it in Japanese without speaking Japanese. But at this point, I would say it was definitely better than several of the recent Dragon Ball movies, and I enjoyed it.
Well,
Okay. Granny just said, well, and
Sorry.
everything went quiet.
Right, I was waiting to see what was following the well.
Yeah.
you will have to wait another 2
2
months,
months for
5
the
days.
theatrical release, yeah.
Yep.
Although there might be a fan sub between now and then.
Oh, I'm sure somebody will come out with one. But it's definitely gonna be dark webby type, considering somebody already has the license.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Reputable fan subbers won't touch it.
Mm-hmm. I imagine that all the versions.
Code of honor.
Mm-hmm. I imagine all the versions of the movie that were on YouTube have been taken down by now.
Probably.
Most likely.
But yeah, they've officially released the date as August 19th.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, there's definitely people having a laugh that the entire movie leaked online before the first English trailer even came out.
Not surprising.
What do you think is going to happen in 2022 if you separate the release dates between countries by over 2 months?
Yeah.
You get what you fucking deserve.
That's why I still haven't seen the Broly movie in English, because I watched it I watched a subbed version, months before it came out in the US.
Mm-hmm.
Most studios work on a simultaneous release now.
Mm-hmm.
But some people are still a little old school. Okay, well, that's the end of Geek Talk. Moving on to our episode summary.
Yes. So I know you're going to time me, but I think having my own stopwatch open will help me concentrate. So I'm going to load that up.
Okay.
Okay. And yeah, just give me a countdown when to start.
All right. 3, 2, 1, go.
All right, the episode opens at the end of The Faceless Ones with the Doctor and Jamie chasing after the TARDIS that somebody seems to be, spiriting away. They eventually find that it's being taken to some collector or other person related to antiquities, and the guy's staff does not seem to be, very cooperative with them. Eventually, the guy that they were arguing with ends up being knocked out, and there are some clues left for them to go to a coffee shop. They go to the coffee shop, but the Doctor is suspicious of what is going on. And then another person working for the same guy, which would be Mr. Waterfield, as being the seemingly the boss at this point. Another guy working for Mr. Waterfield approaches them, knows their names, or at least knows Jamie's name, and invites them to come to a meeting at 10 o'clock and discuss it. The doctor decides to arrive early, and they manage to snoop around. Meanwhile, with all of this happening, one of the staff people working for Mr. Waterfield finds that there is a secret room in his home where, for whatever reason, Mr. Waterfield is communicating with Daleks. So the Dalek goes ahead and executes the guy. And I'm only on episode 1, and I'm a minute and a half in, so I need to hurry up. So the doctor and Jamie end up meeting with Mr. Waterfield, which ends up with them being knocked unconscious and brought back into the past through that mysterious room, where they find that Waterfield and a guy he's working with named Dr. Maxtable have unintentionally begun working with the Daleks because they were doing time travel experiments, and they're being forced to work with them because Waterfield's daughter, Victoria, has been taken hostage. The Daleks want the Doctor to develop what they call the human factor, which is distilling human emotions, which they claim is a way to help the Daleks overcome all the barriers they've been facing with humanity throughout the years. The Doctor does so and manages to create 3 Daleks that are playful and childlike. The Daleks then blow up the home that they're all in and transport everyone to Skaro, where they meet the Dalek Emperor, who reveals that the secret plan is to do the opposite of the human factor and create the Dalek factor, which they are going to force the Doctor to distribute through all of humanity in the past and basically turn them into mental Daleks with the bodies of humans. In the process, they manage to turn Maxtable into a human Dalek, but there is a cinch in their plans that the human-minded Daleks are still out on Skaro. The Doctor sabotages their machines and convinces them that he is a human Dalek because the Dalek factor doesn't work on Time Lords. So he talks them into sending all of the Daleks through the machine in order to find the humanified Daleks, which instead basically creates a faction of Daleks with human minds who are questioning their orders. This basically causes a revolt where this new group of Daleks are fighting against the Dalek Emperor. Basically the Daleks are killing each other, including what appears the Emperor. The Doctor sticks around just long enough to think that all of the Daleks are dead, although there is still one left. However, in the process, Mr. Waterfield ends up dying, as well as another person who had been working with them and become friends with Jamie. Then the Doctor, Jamie, and Victoria go on to the TARDIS to eventually go on to Telos, the end.
Okay.
I don't think I missed anything important there.
Not particularly. About.
I mean, I left out Kemmel's whole thing, but
about
yeah.
4 minutes 30 seconds.
Yep. Oh, I forgot the robotized guy. I don't know. That was
he wasn't really a major plot point. He's just kind of a side plot.
You could have cut him from the episode, and it wouldn't have changed much, to be honest.
No. Other than like a Chekhov's gun to them trying to control people's minds.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. All right. So let's talk about what we liked about the episode. And Matt, you are first.
I am first. So actually, here's the thing. I watched the one complete live action episode that was there, and one of the things I wanted to look into, not only like the set design and stuff, but also I wanted to see how close they got to the actual actors. And I have to say, they're definitely not 1-to-1, but I would say that what I was able to see, they were close enough to say that, yeah, you can tell these characters apart from their original actors just as well. So I think they did a pretty solid job on keeping them a certain style that they would be easy to animate, but also keeping enough of the original actors there to make them recognizable, which
If
is
you
very
say
nice.
so.
I'm sure in certain angles they still looked odd, but for the most part, except for maybe like the thief guy who was trying to steal from the safe at the beginning of that episode, they all looked very recognizable to me. So
All right.
I felt they did a decent job on keeping the characters as close as possible.
I'll discuss that a little later. Alex.
You know what? It came up last time as like a kind of random thing. But honestly, I like the music in this one. I don't really say that often about Classic Who because it's, a lot of it is mainly just atmospheric and stuff. And it still kind of is to a point in this. It's not like a full-blown score or anything. But honestly, I found myself really liking it. Like, you have that little thing for the Daleks, sort of a theme for the Daleks. Even Victoria kind of has her own little theme. Yeah, like it stood out more than most music does in a lot of the classic era stuff I've seen.
Actually, yeah, I want to add in there really quickly. I love the Dalek theme. It's very much like a Cyberman theme from later in the 80s. That kind of like tense synth drummy sound that every time they come marching in.
Anything more?
No, that's about it.
All right, Bill.
I'm going to say I like the chess game between the Doctor and the Daleks. Like they're constantly trying to outsmart each other and figure out what the other's plan is and use that plan against them. And I think it follows through in a logical way. Like there's not well, I knew that you were going to push me in a hole, so I came back 300 years in the past in order to catch myself in the hole and I'll curse a fatal death. It's not to that extreme. Instead, it's a much more believable. Like you can, these are two sets of enemies that really know the way each other thinks and are really just trying to outsmart each other at every turn. And I think that's pulled off really well.
All right. So for me, I was amazed at how well the animation upped the watchability of this episode, especially since we had a character who was essentially a mute.
Yeah.
And I remember getting to that part in the telesnaps and having no idea what was going on.
Yeah.
And here they got the gestures and everything animated, so you know what he was doing.
Right.
And it makes all the difference.
Yeah, I think there's definitely one scene with Kemmel where I'm like, wow, I would have hated to have watched this in telesnaps. Because it's like just someone who's talking, interacting with someone who's mute, like that's gotta suck for telesnaps.
It did.
Mm-hmm.
It did. So let's talk about what we didn't like. And Matt, you are
Back
first.
To me, what I didn't like. I was gonna say that I have some complaints about the usual culprits, like basically one of the humans being a backstabbing, usual, typical a-hole. But I'm not sure how much they did in Doctor Who at the time. At least I don't think they actually did that. Actually, no, they did do that with the Daleks a couple times already. Actually, somebody that's supposed to be a part of the group is actually a backstabbing a-hole, and eventually gets their just desserts as they wander back into the building to get crushed.
Yep.
So yeah, I have to say that the usual influences are kind of overwhelmingly typical.
All right. Alex?
I'm just gonna go with like Camel being there at all, really.
Yeah.
He doesn't really, aside from being like this. It's funny because like until they brought up that he was Turkish, I was like, oh wait, that's what he's supposed to. Okay, I mean the animation's so basic that you can't really tell beyond.
I forgot what
ethnic.
nationality they said, but he's basically like stand-in, the only person of color and the one they refer to
Yeah.
multiple times as dumb, stupid, whatever.
Yeah,
And from the
like,
context, they don't mean
underdeveloped
dumb as in
brain.
mute. They definitely mean dumb as in unintelligent.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, that's right. It's the 1960s.
Mm,
Britain's still racist.
Mm-hmm.
yeah. And it's just like, what?
And I think there's a
Purpose
version
does
of the
he-
same character in the very next episode as well.
Yep.
Yep.
And it's just like, okay, what purpose does he really serve? I will say, I'll give this more of a pass than Tomb of the Cybermen, because that's supposed to be in the future, so what the hell?
Mhm.
Whereas this
Yeah.
is at least set in a time frame
Right.
where it's like, yeah, a manservant who's this big hulking
I mean,
mute from elsewhere is like, okay, that fits a time period more at least. But
in
it's
terms
still
of what purpose he serves, having a character there makes a lot of sense because it helps like the Jamie showing mercy, forming friendships, trusting each other. That's all part of the human factor. But you don't need like this, preternaturally strong, mute person of color who's repeated, all of this typical shit. Like that, none
Yeah.
of that adds to his character in a meaningful way.
Yeah, it's just like, this could have been handled better, and like, I didn't expect him to go off in the TARDIS, but like, yeah, I kind of expected that end. They almost tricked me into thinking he was gonna survive, and then nope. And I'm just like, oh well, yeah.
Oh, maybe he'll survive. Kill.
Yeah.
Oh, never mind. Actually, what I was actually hoping for, and I had forgotten what actually happened in that particular scene, was I was hoping the scientist would go right in with him.
Oh, like fall to the
Yeah,
to his death at the same time instead of going back into the building,
instead of going back into the building and getting
into the
crushed.
dome, I guess.
Yeah,
Mhm.
the Dalek
Yeah.
dome.
For a second, I
Tuesday
thought
on
it
the
was going to be.
Dalek Dome.
They're like, why is there a human yelling about the Daleks will always survive? We don't need this shit right now. Just execute him. But
Right.
that's not the route they took.
Well, I don't
Yeah.
think they had a choice because they're still busy fighting.
Yeah.
All right. Who are we up to?
So is that on to me?
Yeah.
So I'm going to say it's not like I hate it completely, but the animation does rub me the wrong way a few times. There's two main things I want to say. One, and they're both related to specifically the animation rubbing me the wrong way. One is I put this into our Discord chat, but you take Maxtival, who is one of the most visually interesting, visually unique characters, human characters in Doctor Who. With a full like mane, and what they did with him in the animation, I feel
They
it
did
does
tame
not
him
do him
down a
justice.
bit.
It's
I will-
indefensible. I would say there. It's like they had no
It is-
idea.
Honestly,
how
it
to
is
animate
defensible,
him.
but I think it's because they're on a budget in short time.
Yeah.
fair.
Honestly,
They couldn't afford more. They couldn't afford more hair.
Yeah.
Mm.
That's
Honestly,
honest
I
truth on
could-
that. They got
I could
streamlined it.
I could legitimately buy them attempting to recreate the mane of hair and it looking really crap in the
That
simplistic
too.
animation, and them just
Mhm.
going, "Oh fuck it."
Fuck it, just coming all down.
Yeah.
But the other issue I had with the animation, and this is more of like it just being fucking weird, is that it seems when there's humans on screen, they animate it in one certain style, that matches other animated stories, or at least somewhat. But then when there's only Daleks, it's like they're like, now it needs to be photorealistic. It's like in this 3D. I mean,
They
yeah,
did that every time, even in the previous story that we were watching. That the Daleks very frequently turned to 3D.
it seemed it seemed at least was more apparent to me personally in this story where it was
It was
like,
very apparent to me in both of them.
yeah, okay. Whereas just all of a sudden the animation style is completely different. It's like, oh, now they're trying to make it look exactly like the
legit
original.
look like they motion captured like what little footage they had of Daleks at the time to get it on
Right.
screen. And
that's why when we were chatting before the podcast started, before everyone was here, I think I mentioned that it looks a couple of times like they took like special effects that they still had footage for, or at least that they had blurry footage for, or whatever, and then just added animation on top of it. So
yeah,
it still
they
fit,
rotoscoped it.
so it still fit the animated episode.
They rotoscoped it in 3D. Yeah.
Yeah, the disconnect between the human segments and the all Dalek segments kind of felt really off to me, and I would have preferred them sticking to one style.
Well, to be honest, these guys also did multiple Dalek stories, so that's probably their way of cutting down the budget for Daleks, is to rotoscope all their tidbits in 3D and then just recycle them as needed.
Which is kind of
maybe
funny
even do
when
it in different angles too, so that way you're not always constantly seeing the exact same thing.
Which is kind of funny when you consider that I think that Dalek fight at the end originally was like a bunch of models
Most likely.
to get it done properly or something like that.
It wouldn't be the first or last time they would have done that. Actually, there was probably action figures. Actually, I think they had like little action figures that they probably blew up.
Yeah.
Because Dalek Mania was big at the time.
All I know is the only episode where it's really super where they unapologetically and it's super obvious that they use a ton of action figures is, I think, Death to the Daleks.
That was
where
Third
it's
Doctor,
just
wasn't
obnoxious. Yeah, late Third Doctor.
it? Yeah, low budget, but we need a lot of Daleks, and we need a lot of them to blow the hell up.
Yeah.
So they had all of the Dalek Mania figures still around, and they just went, okay, well, how many of them do you want filled with firecrackers? Want to make this baby go boom.
Okay. So, like Matt, I watched the second episode in live action, and I had the exact opposite reaction that Matt did. I had a hard time recognizing the characters. Going from animation to live and back. And the one that he was saying, yeah, the thief that gets shot early on is one of them, because in the first episode he's like wearing a coat, suit, and if you go then to the live, all he's wearing is a turtleneck.
Yeah, he's got like a sweatshirt.
Yeah, and
so they took too many liberties with it.
Yeah, they just decided however they were going to draw them however they wanted, and it really kind of threw me out of the episode. And I was having problems with people's faces. In particular, Dr. Waterfield versus his animated version bothered the hell out of me. And as Bill said, Max just looked out. They looked out of place versus their live version. It just was driving me insane. Once I got to episode 3 and it was all animation, after that I was smooth sailing, but the disconnect from the original to the animation just
I wonder if that was part of, because since Alex, you're the one with the original DVD, they did animate all of the episodes, right?
Yeah.
So I wonder if they made it
even the
under
one
the.
that was
I wonder if they made it with the assumption that people would not
See the live action, yeah.
switch back and forth, and they would just watch the animated.
Which is funny because you have two options. You have the option to watch it all animated or animated including the surviving episode or episodes if it's multiple. As like a play all thing.
Gotcha.
So it's kind of funny that they would think that. But I do think they probably. It would not surprise me if they figure, well, not everyone's gonna want to bother to watch the surviving episode if there's only one, or something, as opposed to like 10th Planet where it's like one episode is missing. So they only had to animate the one because as I said before, we started. It's like BBC wasn't. Sure as hell wasn't going to animate all of 10th Planet if they only had to do the 4th one.
Anyway, that was what was bothering me. I did have one other thing that bothered me. And that was the fact that he was doing this this was what, mid 19th century?
Yeah, 1866, I think.
Yeah.
And he's still looking for the Philosopher's Stone equation? To the point that he's obsessed beyond all control?
Yeah.
Making literal deals with the devil.
Yeah. I mean, if this was 1600s, okay. But I thought Victorian era had gotten a bit beyond that.
Which is funny when you consider that I think even the Doctor is kind of offhandedly like, well, I think some people probably still think it's possible in like today, so like the 60s. And I'm just thinking, would they have? I mean, they're probably not going to give a crap anymore, at least.
Well, you see, the thing is, everybody's like, I can turn blank into gold. I'll be rich. I'll be powerful. I'll do this. You'll devalue the fucking market.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And also I'm thinking, like, Maxwell, you live in a fucking manor. Like, what do you give a shit about gold when you have, like, a fucking manservant and all these other people and you live in, like, this opulent house? Like, what do you give a crap?
The richest people are the one most stressed out about how they're going to get richer.
Yeah. Fair.
EA, it's in the game. No, not really. You have to pay for more of it.
Poor people are like, how am I going to eat? Middle class people are like, how am I going to not become poor? And rich people are like, how am I going to get more rich?
Right.
And the 1%'s like, oh, you're all boned.
I mean, I could understand looking for this. It's the level of obsession.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Level of obsession that he just literally doesn't care about anybody who was close to him anymore.
Correct.
Yep. Yeah, considering he's the one who puts Victoria in danger. He's the one who almost kills Victoria's father.
Yeah, he's the one that does all of this nasty shit. It's basically all on his head. And he's like, none of it'll matter if I get the equation to turn iron into gold.
Yeah. And, like, even at that point, if it was just, like, more so not him being obsessed so much as him trying to rationalize everything, is just like, well, no, see, if I get what I asked, then this'll all be worth it. Then, like, rather than being obsessed over the idea of gold necessarily, just be like, hey, if they give me what I want, then I can, I can make gold for you and buy you off and you can fuck off elsewhere or whatever. Then, like, that'd be something, but it's more just that he's kind of turned into, like, Ah. I'm blanking on what like, the only thing I can think of is the thing that comes up in, like, some Norse stuff, and then Tolkien ripped off the idea of dragon sickness. Whereas, like, just pure, like, that kind of level of obsession with that. It's like, that's kind of what it comes off as.
Well, yeah, I mean, that even goes down to other things. Remember the legend of King Midas? Gold fever has been an ongoing issue in Western society forever. But, you know, there's usually a cutoff point for a realistic character.
Yeah.
Then you get the real life doesn't need to be as strange as fiction. And you get the rich people who are like, well, what if I buy Mars?
Is that a thing?
That is Elon Musk.
Did he? I don't know
He's
about
definitely made comments to that regard. He's basically like said like he had plans. It basically came down to plans to like bring along a bunch of people who would functionally work as servants in order to colonize Mars. And everybody who knows anything about science is like, yeah, that's not really within our capabilities. Also, your way of planning it is awful.
Oh. Sorry, I was just some people.
Right.
All right. So, favorite scenes.
favorite scenes. Actually. Favorite scene. Dizzy Dalek, Dizzy Dalek. And then basically one of their commanders coming in to shut them down and literally even annihilating one of them before giving them more commands, and they just kind of silently went, no, fuck you, and blasted him back.
But I kind of went through it really quickly while I was doing the chapters, but I think that might have been your favorite scene the first time we reviewed this too.
Doesn't surprise me. It only got better because we actually have proper visuals now.
Okay.
I bet you I stole that from Tim too.
Alex.
I feel like I want to go with the confrontation between the Dalek Emperor and the Doctor. Just because, like, for one thing, I much prefer this Dalek Emperor to New Who's design of it. Because, I don't know, this just looks more like, yeah, that's probably what the Daleks would actually do.
Well, it looks more like an actual proper Dalek, to be fair. Just much bigger.
It even actually has the eye stalk and
an active eye stalk.
I think you see it shoot someone at one point.
Did it? I don't recall.
Probably. I forget.
I know it was trying to defend itself, but there was also several other dogs there, so it's hard to tell.
Right.
But yeah, like, just... It's also kind of interesting because, like, for as much as the Doctor was kind of like, oh god, when he realized the Daleks were first involved, he's like kind of unflinching when confronted with the Dalek Emperor. Just kind of like, no, fuck you, I'm gonna beat.
I wondered
like,
when we were going to meet.
Yeah.
Which that's very interesting considering this is the first episode that even hinted at a Dalek Emperor existing. Like it existed in the wider fandom and the wider like extended lore. But on the show, this was the first even mention of a Dalek Emperor.
Hmm.
All right. Let's see. Bill, what was your?
So I'm going to go with the doctor revealing that like when the doctor sneaks through or when the doctor goes through the machine and then reveals that it didn't work on him, because this, for one thing, it probably has to be one of the most subtle uses of the rule of three I've ever seen, because first they mention that he's like the Daleks mention that he's more than human, although they don't know what a Time Lord is. They just know he's traveled in time a lot. And then at another point he mentions that like well, maybe I could even take people take survivors to or that's right. He's like, if everything goes wrong, maybe I can even take you to my home planet. And then so this basically being the third time, he's like, oh yeah, I'm not human, so this machine doesn't affect me the same way.
Yep.
So that, like, that spread out so much and being so subtle between its uses has to be one of the most subtle uses of the rule of three I've ever seen. And also, like, it fits perfectly into that whole chess game I was talking about of the Emperor Dalek and the Doctor trying to outsmart each other at every turn. And this is the Doctor really getting the upper hand with, yeah, they think I'm Dalekified, but I'm not, and this is how I'm going to fuck up all their plans.
They still think I have some sort of normal, fragile human mind. That'll teach them.
Mm-hmm.
Although that does, if the memory banks of Daleks hold out, that would be another big hint for them as to what the Doctor might actually be. Because it starts to slim it down already with the time travel.
Right.
And then immune to heavy mental hypnotic suggestion.
We have lost Iran.
Oh, we lost Rand? Okay. Are we...
And he's next.
Yeah, he's next. Are we getting back soon, or should we carry on?
I guess we can wait a little while.
Well, he didn't seem to dip out of Discord entirely, just the call, so...
He may have an issue with his microphone or something and
Or having difficulties, yeah.
Yeah, so let's assume he's coming back in the next couple minutes. So I guess I'll say one thing I was thinking of that didn't really add to my point, but it was related, and that's it seemed kind of weird, and I think this was just in the moment trying to spare Jamie from being involved, when he was like, oh, well, what if you experiment on me instead? And it was like, you want to give the Daleks the Time Lord factor? Because that doesn't seem very safe to me. And we're still just going quiet.
I'm guessing that we should probably move on then if we're not going to be getting him back in just a moment.
Yeah, if nobody else has anything to add to that, so then I guess we go with the first least favorite scene.
Least favorite scene. Actually, this was during the live action. Just the way that the other two scientists kept holding their tongue so obviously on the whole. Did you say static? What are the names of these creatures, etc. Until the very moment the dog came in, and it's like you already knew the Doctor was already guessing it, but it's just like, oh come on, just say it already. And then finally the dog comes in. It's like, well, you ruined the surprise.
Oh, is that him back? Are you back, Ren? Maybe not.
Hmm.
Oh, I heard something. There's a slight thump, but then nothing.
So it's a microphone issue?
Yeah.
Most likely.
Yeah.
Rand, if you can at least hear us, could you tell us what your oh, never mind.
Oh,
Um yeah, I gave my least favorite scene, so
Mhm. Yeah, I guess. I mean,
yeah.
I never thought of it as a bad, but yeah, it definitely. It's definitely like they're afraid to say the word Dalek until the actual Dalek shows up. For a second, I thought it
Mm.
was like in Power of the Daleks, where they're like, well, we don't know what they're called, but we just know that they're terrifying or something.
no.
But that's not the
Mm.
case because then they immediately start talking about them as the Daleks later.
Yeah,
Hmm.
they for a reason just didn't want to name drop, even though that wouldn't have changed anything from that scene at that
Mhm.
point.
Although I've got to say the over reliance on literally anything to do with static immediately means Dalek starts to get old.
Yeah,
Like
which is
there are
why
other
it's
uses
I'm
for
so happy
static.
that the third Doctor started eliminating that.
Mhm. Take
By the
three.
take ooh, Ran. Still no Ran as far as I can tell.
Hmm.
Can you guys hear me?
Ah, there we
Yes,
go.
we
go.
hear you
Yep.
now.
Yeah, apparently my headset decided to stop working.
Ah,
Ooh,
Ah.
might be time to replace it again.
Just replaced it like less than a month ago.
Well, apparently it's having a lot of issues. Not helped by the cats.
Hmm.
Well, this one was like my computer froze.
Hmm.
Like the drivers froze. So I don't know what to do about that.
ah.
So where were we?
So it's up to
Favorite
your
scene.
least. It's up to your favorite scene.
Oh, yeah, I was saying my favorite scene has about anything to do with the humanized Daleks. From them giving the Doctor a ride to basically even just how they sounded.
Why?
Yeah. I just thought they were. They just amused me.
Would have actually been better if the the questioning humanized Daleks would have actually been the other group of Daleks in the 80s.
Hmm.
Well, that would have been
Yeah,
a little
but
more interesting, I think.
You would have had the free thinking Daleks versus the obedient
The
Daleks.
obedient Daleks who all follow Davros, yeah.
well, remember that these particular two serials, Power and Evil, were not made by Terry Nation.
Right.
True, so they're
And if
basically probably not considered canon by Terry.
Yep. So when they went back to using Terry Nation in the Third Doctor era with Day, Day or Death, I can't remember which.
I think it's
Some
day off first. Yeah.
Yeah, I think. Well, yeah, I know. I just can't remember if that's when Terry Nation took back over as writer.
Mhm.
Um, he just basically ignored that these episodes happened. Um, yeah, Day of the Daleks was actually written by Louis Marks.
Ah.
So I actually think that the first time we get to see Terry Nation back is Did he do? Malcolm Hulk did that.
He wrote
Oh,
Planet of
Planet.
the Daleks.
Yep, that's what I was checking. I was right
Mhm.
there. Yep. Yeah, he wrote Planet of the Daleks, which was his grand return to writing. Um, that so he did
And if you
Planet, and
notice,
then
I
he
think
did
that's
Death.
the return of the Thals as well.
Mm-hmm. Planet, then he did Death, and then he did Genesis, which is considered to be one of his greatest Dalek episodes.
Mm-hmm.
And then he would continue to do Destiny. Um, and then did he do Resurrection? No, that was Eric Sayward. So yeah,
Right, right.
that was the end of Nation's run as a Dalek writer.
Mm-hmm.
But he took that time to set them back on not this path, but the
Mm-hmm.
Davros path.
Yeah, the fact that this is not Nation might also be why I think the only episodes with an actual Dalek Emperor are this one and Bad Wolf.
I think so.
Because I mean, there's a fake out where there's a Dalek Emperor that's actually Davros with a dome over his head.
Yes.
Mm.
That's in
Remembrance.
Remembrance.
Yeah.
Yep. But I was trying to remember if they had a sort of acting emperor in the Wizard's Apprentice, because it had the voice, but it did not have the body.
Mm. I think that was more one of those New Who sort of generally sort of Daleks.
Yeah, it might have been like a saucer leader or something.
Mm.
Yeah, I guess it was the Supreme Dalek, but he had the Emperor voice.
Mm.
Mm.
That's the only reason I questioned.
I don't know why I'm looking it up because it's probably just going to say something like Daleks Nicholas Briggs, regardless of what types of Daleks there are.
Yeah, I mean it was the Red Dalek,
Okay,
but
Yeah.
he had that reverb to his voice.
gotcha.
Yeah.
What
That
was in
reverb.
charge in Asylum of the Daleks? Do you remember?
I'm not sure there was anything in charge of Asylum of the
I
Daleks.
think it was on
Gotcha.
the Sentai
Yeah.
Daleks.
Ah,
Oh, yeah, the council, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
oh, so they did have a second appearance. Okay.
Yes, they did. They had only a second appearance, and then were done away with
Okay.
quietly. Pure dog, my foot.
Yeah, I hope they've gotten rid of those by now. They were just bad. But yeah, that's I think the only Imperial appearance.
Mhm.
What do we have to least favorite
So
scenes now?
we did Matt's least favorite scene while you were experiencing technical difficulties. So I think we're up to Alex now.
Okay,
Yep.
what was Matt's least favorite scene?
Mine was the scientist pussyfooting around the word Dalek until literally a dog appears, and then it's just fine to tell the doctor everything.
Okay.
Honestly, I feel like mine was Kemmel's death because it's like, I'm sorry, but just because Maxtable has the mind of a Dalek, I don't buy. And like, yeah, they show that technically he's on a ledge and he slips more than gets like overpowered. But I'm like,
yeah, I believe the slip more than the overpowered, but at the same time, I wouldn't think he would have slipped that much with an elderly old man trying to push him. As a matter of fact,
Right.
I would more easily believe
Yeah.
him sidestepping the old man and the old man falling over.
Maybe I was wondering if maybe he was surprised, and so he was so surprised he forgot to like not get knocked over.
Yeah, like maybe his guard was like completely cut off, and then it's just like, oh shit, and
yeah.
I guess if your boss just rushed at you, chanting "kill, kill, kill," you might be a little surprised for a couple seconds.
right. Just look up and
Yeah,
like, what the hell? Ah!
Yeah, like even then, I'm just thinking like, very least, I would have at least preferred for Kemmel to just be like, well, fuck you, I'm taking you with me, and just sort of grab around him and like take him over the edge with
that's
him.
right. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Because given that he doesn't, and he's just like, and then like, and Jamie doesn't do anything, and I'm like, fuck off.
that's
Jamie
the part
would
that
shove
counts.
him off.
Yeah, that was the
Like,
part
I
that bothered me
get-
the most, is that Jamie
Yeah.
did nothing during that particular scene.
Yeah, it's like, I get, like, being with the Doctor is like gonna soften Jamie somewhat in that respect, but I'm like, you just saw him kill someone, and
Well,
he's
let him
like,
go.
this person Maxwell is effectively dead because of this brainwashing. So it's like, you know, just shove
Well,
him
I guess
over. Like,
I mean, I guess they could make him walk through the arch and get the human factor again, but he wasn't. As we discussed earlier, he wasn't really a great human beforehand.
yeah. And like, the funny thing is like, Jamie wouldn't even have to explain it anyway if he had. He could just be like, oh yeah, you know, like Kemmel just took him over the edge with him. Yeah. It's fine.
All right. So, Bill, yours.
So to me, I'm trying to pick one, but really it comes down to any scene with Arthur in it. Like, there's
That was
really-
mine as well. What was the point of his character? Why the fuck was he there?
like every plan he like I get when he's like arguing with Maxtable, but like all of his plans make no sense. The split personality thing doesn't really make sense in the context of the episode. I get that the idea of robotization is sort of like a hint at like the Dalek factor, kind of, but not a very good one, and not one that really adds to the episode much.
No.
Like,
He just comes off as this. You're just there going, what the fuck?
he's not a
What
good
was this-
Roboman. He's not a good character.
What was his role in the household?
He was like
Crazy
there
old
to be
man.
he was there to be a third rich person, or I mean, I guess he lived with them because he was going to marry Ruth.
Okay.
And maybe like they were planning to stay together with Ruth's father until they got a new house or something. I don't really know how Victorian households worked and if that was normal.
If they were planning on inheriting it, that would have been fine.
Oh yeah, that's true. Oh, we lost Alex this time.
Oh,
But yeah, no, his character just came off as what the fuck.
Like if I had to pick one, it would probably be the scene where he's like threatening the Doctor with a sword, but then the Doctor's like, "Oh, look, your sword is magnetic." So he drops the sword, which gives the Doctor even more information. Like, what was the point of any of that? Like, it doesn't come off like padding, but functionally it becomes that because it really adds nothing.
However, I did enjoy the sword fight between him and Jamie.
Mm.
Albeit, I do think Jamie should have wiped the floor with him.
Slow the plot down, laddie. Slow the plot down.
Considering Jamie had already beaten Kemmel's ass.
Oh yeah. Well, not even just beating Kimmel's ass, outsmarted his ass big time.
I mean, yeah, he outsmarted him, but before he did that,
Oh,
he
actually, yeah,
basically
even then
outmuscled
he
him
still
too.
he managed to knock him over the yeah, the railing and basically
Right.
threw him in WCW style into a table.
Yes. I'm wondering what that looked like in live action, because the way it was animated, like, it wasn't quite Warner Brothers, but it wasn't too far removed. Like, he fell down as a straight line.
The only thing missing was basically Jamie hopping back up on top of that railing himself and just coming down with an elbow drop.
Scotch people's elbow. Yeah.
The Scotsman's elbow, yeah.
All right, Rand. So since I stole what you wanted to say, did you have a backup?
No, I didn't.
Ah,
That was my major issue. I went off on it too.
yeah.
Only reason I say Jamie should have kicked his ass, because let's remind people, Jamie used to be a soldier.
He used to be a Scotch soldier in a fight where they would also frequently use swords. So yeah, he should have wiped the floor with him.
Yep.
Whereas, I mean,
He's a
Arthur
punk.
did fight in the Crimean War, apparently. I doubt they used swords very often for that, though.
Kind of doubt it. I think there's a little more gunfight with that. There might have been some, but not as much. Not as much as what
Yeah.
Jamie went through.
And
Right.
he would have been an officer in the Crimean War too.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, that means
So-
he's probably just sat in the back.
Yep.
Because it was the soldiers that had to fight, not the officers.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Like, he might have had more training than the average person, but he shouldn't be more than Jamie.
Correct.
Mm-hmm. And even
Who
then,
would've
he
been
would have had
just-
training, but he wouldn't have had the experience like Jamie does.
Right. Because Jamie was a foot soldier.
Mm-hmm. And Jamie, I don't think, had muskets or rifles or anything of the sort.
If they did have any, there wasn't that many. He had to dodge fire and come running in.
It would have been. I think they did have muskets then, but they were early muskets.
Yeah, they were very much one-shot rifles, and it took a while to
Yeah.
powder and pack
Right.
again.
Right, yeah, because like
And
in the
I'm
war,
not-
yeah,
Yeah, in more games, he literally dodges
Yeah.
a shot from a Brit and comes
and
at him.
I think the
Mm.
Scottish just had the ones that they managed to liberate off of dead British.
Mm-hmm.
That would make
Mm.
sense. There's no way they would have had the same resources.
Yeah, so the Scots were all swords and pikes, and the Britons had the single shot rifles with bayonets.
Yeah, animated Highlander. When's that coming out? I don't think that's come out.
There's
Well,
been an
I'm sure-
animated
I'm sure-
movie and a TV
No,
series.
I
That
meant
was
Highlander as in Doctor Who.
Oh, the Highlanders.
the
Yes,
Highlanders.
sorry.
Yeah, there's a difference
Sorry.
there.
I said in my head as the Highlander and not the Highlanders.
You,
but-
you
So-
said Highlander, immediately my brain goes, there could be only one.
Yeah.
This is
there-
Clan
I-
McCrimmon, not Clan McLeod.
I posted a picture of a depiction of the Battle of Culloden, which is Culloden, which is where they found Jamie shortly thereafter. So you can see the Scots armaments, and you can see the British armaments, and that does seem to point the fact that Jamie would have known how to use the sword.
Right.
Hell yeah, when he gets sent back in war games, he's like going after the guy who tried to shoot him with the sword. So
Yep. So that would make sense. I think he would have kicked Arthur's ass with a sword. Just saying.
yeah.
No disagreement
Anyway.
here.
Let's go to final thoughts.
Well, thoughts back to me. Definitely an improvement over the stills that we have been watching before. Yes, there's especially since one of the characters, even though they could be easily removed from the plot, still, if you're going to have them there, it's very important to understand what the heck that character's doing, and you don't get that in stills. So that was a huge improvement for that. There's also a couple other quiet moments, much like the previous Power of the Daleks, where it's quiet for a bit and you don't know what's going on unless you actually visually see them doing something. Still images and a bunch of text at the bottom just only goes so far. The story itself is an interesting one. I'm not going to say it's perfect, but it's definitely interesting. It does have a few repeated foibles foils rather for the Daleks to use and abuse as usual, and as usual, they never want to listen to the Doctor when the obvious signs are around them. But otherwise, had some other interesting side characters, and I guess, and also the first introduction of the Emperor Dalek, which was kind of hinted at throughout until they finally showed it, which was an interesting reveal and very well done. The animation, again, speedily made, but adequate for at least giving us what we needed.
All right. Anything more?
That's about it.
All right, Alex.
So yeah, last week we went from
You're old cyber.
oh
Yeah, you got like scratchy audio all of a sudden.
oh
Oh, now you're good.
No, you
That
don't.
sounds better. I was gonna say it sounded
Oh,
almost
okay.
more like a halfway plugged-in headset than anything else. But I think your headset's wireless, so that couldn't be the case.
God, but anyway, yeah. It was interesting to go from last week, where it was something that was ripped off in New Who to inspire Victory of the Daleks, and the classic Who variant was better. Arguably, this was ripped off later to become the Daleks in Manhattan stuff to a point, and like, yeah, this I prefer this as well. I feel like I prefer Power of the Daleks over this. And you could definitely make the argument that this could have just been a 6-parter instead of a 7. Especially if you get rid of the guy who keeps going between being mind controlled and not. You could probably shave off enough to have to like not need an extra episode. Or at the very least they could have like done a bit better with him. Because yeah, it does feel like he ultimately doesn't really serve too much beyond foreshadowing. But yeah, like I still give this a lot of credit because like with Power of the Daleks, these were good enough that I only needed to see them twice prior to the podcast because the main gist of it stuck with me after the first watch, which I cannot say for quite a lot of stuff in Doctor. Like, a lot of it will just go. It'll just like, I'll be interested enough that maybe I'll remember some stuff, but especially with like longer classic Who stories like this, like there'll be ones where like I'd probably have had to have watched it 2 or 3 times to really remember enough, but both Power and Evil, I'm just like, oh wow, these are actually good enough that they keep me interested enough that I actually retain quite a lot. So I have to give it a lot of credit for that. But yeah, despite those issues, I still think this holds up pretty well. And it was also interesting to see another story with Victoria in it, because I guarantee you I've not seen all that much with Victoria. The only one that I can know for certain is Tomb of the Cybermen.
I mean, that's
Um,
because
That's one of the few
at
episodes
least-
that's so and altogether with her in it.
because she is in the genre of telesnaps, and you
Right.
tend to avoid that genre of Doctor Who
Right,
episodes.
yeah.
Hmm.
Right.
Actually, what was the one with the evil doctor? Actually, that would have been like the episode right after she left. Now that I think of it.
Right.
And what was the name of that episode? Now that you say that,
Yeah, Enemy of the
Enemy of the
World?
Enemy of the
World.
World.
that's
yeah.
the one. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just happen to think that maybe she was in that, but now that I think of it, no, I think she left before that.
I think she was in it. No,
Was she? Thought that might have been Zoe.
I'm pulling up the list. I could have sworn there was a scene of like
I think
her
she
and
was in
Jamie
that.
sitting on a bench together.
I think she was in that.
She was, okay. So not completely
Yeah,
bonkers.
that so she left in serial 42. Enemy of the World was serial 40.
Yep.
So in a couple more episodes.
Mm-hmm. Because that was before the Web of Fear.
Yep, right
And she
before.
And she's in that. And then Fury from the Deep is where we lose her. Which is right after Web of Fear.
Alrighty.
So yeah. What an outing for Victoria. She gets Daleks her first run. Then she gets the Great Intelligence / Yetis.
You skipped the Cybermen already.
Oh yeah. Sorry. Yeah, then the Cybermen, then Great Intelligence Yetis, Ice Warriors, Evil
Salamander.
Dr. Clone,
Yep.
Great,
Great
Intelligence
Intelligence
Yeti,
again.
Killer Plants, and she leaves.
Oh, God, that's very like Tegan would look at her run and go, "Oh, at least I had some." Like,
Yeah, at least Tegan would look at that and go, wow, at least I had a break once in a while. Not that I didn't constantly run into the biggest menaces in all of the universe every single day.
At least Tegan didn't start with the Daleks and then go immediately to Cybermen, shot Chaser.
Yeah. It's like, oh God, the Daleks killed my family and everyone I know and care about. Oh wait, now I've got to deal with these bloody.
Now I gotta
robots
deal with
in
these guys that
space,
literally want
like,
to rob me of my
goddammit.
brain and just use my body as
Yeah.
a robot. Great.
Yeah.
Yeah, fun. Okay, so where were we?
Was that
Bill?
Alexis?
Yeah.
Okay, yep.
Mhm.
All right, so we're with me. So yeah, this is an interesting episode. I agree, it's not to the highs of Power, and it definitely like it's one of those where there's some strengths, some weaknesses. Where it really shines is that interplay between the Doctor and the Daleks. It's also, I think, the only episode of Doctor Who to truly, unironically take alchemy seriously, and I don't even just mean the Philosopher's Stone, like their whole version of time travel, which kind of, I mean, it makes some sense because this is even before tachyons were discovered by a few months, I think, or at least around the same time. It would have been written before then. But yeah, like their version of time travel is complete alchemy. It's like this could have been called the alchemy of the Daleks and not changed anything. And it almost would have been interesting to explore that more, but it really makes it a fascinating episode just to look back on.
Actually, if they wanted to do a better job of hiding the big bad, they could have just called it the alchemy of evil.
True. Yeah, if they did want to save the Daleks for like the second episode or something.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so it definitely falters a bit with some of the characters, and some of the writing. Yeah, it's definitely. I mean, you can definitely see like the brilliance of David Whittaker, and the problematic side of David Whittaker in the writing of this episode. As for the animation, I bagged on it before as something I had issues with. But that said, it wasn't bad. Like, I think it was still better than Galaxy 4's animation, which
Yeah.
I think is the lowest animation we've discussed.
Yeah.
It's just it just doesn't quite hit the highs. Like, there are things that bothered me about it.
And honestly, I
So
think that's
I'll-
possibly due to both parts budget and also parts time constraint.
So it's kind of like the animation kind of mirrors how I feel about the story itself. Above average, but not at the peaks. And yeah, that's a good summary of my overall feelings of the episode. Also, it's very clear in the story, like, Victoria's pretty much written as, here's your damsel in distress for the episode. Oh, I guess we're gonna have her as a companion.
That
And
happens a lot. All right.
and that's it for me.
Welcome to the
So, my
60s.
opinion. Yeah, the animation's not the greatest in this, but it certainly helps tell the story, which is what it needs to do. The telesnaps were terabad, and with it, this adds a lot of legibility to the episode. You're able to understand what's going on, follow the plot, yada yada yada. In fact, the only episode I was in danger of falling asleep in was the live action one. It's an interesting story. It has its issues, but all in all, it's watchable, enjoyable, with just a couple of things they could have gotten rid of or redone.
Yeah, they could have
That
saved us an
would've-
episode or two of viewing if they would have just eliminated a character or two.
And obviously, it is a product of the times, with the big
big
strong
hulking
black-
man. Yeah.
And, like, we really needed 5 minutes to watch him bend a bar.
I'm sure
That
in the
should've-
60s that
should've
might have been
my
actually a
least favorite
th-
scene.
Hmm.
Yeah.
yeah, back in the
Bend this
60s that might have been a
bar.
big thing.
All right, let's score this. I've already put the previous scores into the chart, so let's see what we're going to alter them to. Matt, you previously gave this a 3.5.
4.5. Yeah, it's not as good as Power, but it's still an outstanding improvement. Thank goodness for it.
So a full point up.
Yep.
Okay, so you've put it a 4.5.
Might be high, but
Alex?
I don't care. It's still good.
This is your first rating of this.
Yeah, yeah, I'm pretty much gonna have to agree with Matt with a 4.5. It's like just enough to drag it down from full
Yeah, it's not
marks.
quite a 5.
Yeah.
All right. Bill, you gave
Sit-
last week's a 5.0. You gave this a 3.5 the first time.
I'm sitting here trying to decide if this gets a 4.0 or a 4.5, because I could feel like I could mentally justify either one, but it really comes in between. But I guess this is at least as good as Galaxy 4, which I gave a 4.5 2 weeks ago. So I'll give this a 4.5.
4.5, and this is the third week in a row. I'm giving it a 4.0.
Ugh. Every party has a pooper. That's why they invited you.
So for the four of us who were here for the re-ratings, that's the exact same scores for Evil of the Daleks and Galaxy 4.
Yeah. But we do have to
And
take
actually,
into
the
account-
exact same. Tim gave both episodes the exact same rating too.
Yep. However, we have Aaron's 2.5 in there. Yeah, why
Which
is
was
this
based on
coming out?
telesnaps. Damn it!
Yeah, but we can't just throw it out.
Right.
Anyway, that'll raise the average to a 4.4.
Why is that higher than the 4.3 for Galaxy 4?
Just
Something's
figure out. Average of D4 through G4. Oh, I see why. I need to go J4. Okay.
Yep.
Just need to jigger the fields a little. Okay. Okay. The others are all okay. So yes, that'll make the average, 4.0. Which will put it, in the big list, number 203 out of about 425 things reviewed. It is on par with Curse of the Black Spot, The Lodger, Planet of Evil, Frontos, Carnival of Monsters, The Censorites, The Aztecs, A Good Man Goes to War, Attack of the Cybermen, Runaway Bride, Vengeance on Varos, Heaven Sent, Terminus, The Invisible Enemy, Crastra Valva. This is the bulk of episodes, by the way. Planet of the Spiders, Rose, Spyfall. It is better than Knock Knock, The Deadly Assassin, Brain of Morbius, Colony in Space, and not as good as Oxygen, The Daemons, The Pilot, and The Space Museum. So there we go. 209 out of 425 things reviewed. That is all we have to say again about Evil of the Daleks, the animated reconstruction.
All right. So if you're watching the VOD of this podcast, please let us know in the comments, what do you think of Evil of the Daleks, and especially the animated version. Don't forget to check out our original review for our for some of our more detailed thoughts in context as a companion entry story. And don't forget to subscribe on YouTube or follow us on Twitch or both to get our streams every week.
All right, so next time we are going to continue with these animated reconstructions, and we're going to take a second look at The Web of Fear, written by Mervyn Heisman and Henry Lincoln, and starring Patrick Troughton as the Doctor, Fraser Hines as Jamie McCrimmon, and Deborah Watling as Victoria Waterfield. See you next time.
Alrighty. See y'all later.
Yeah.